The Wyoming sun dipped low, casting amber streaks across the dusty road as Elliot Harper staggered forward, his boots scraping gravel. His tailored riding jacket was gone, replaced by a threadbare flannel shirt and jeans crusted with dirt from a fall off his horse, Daisy, who'd spooked at a rattlesnake a mile back. His pulse hammered, not just from the tumble, but from the ticking clock. 30 minutes. That's all he had to reach Willow Creek's lone office building to close a $10 million land deal. The contract, tucked in a weathered leather satchel slung over his shoulder, was pristine, unlike his appearance. "Keep moving, you stubborn fool," he muttered, a wry grin tugging at his lips. At 42, he wasn't old, just prideful. Why hadn't he driven? Because riding Daisy was his ritual, a reminder he was more than a suit with a bank account. Elliot wasn't a drifter or a mechanic, though he looked it now. He was a millionaire, his fortune forged in real estate deals spanning Cheyenne to Austin. His name carried weight in boardrooms, but here, limping along Highway 14, he was just a man racing time. The fall had cost him his phone, shattered in a ditch, leaving no way to call his driver or warn the office he'd be late. He'd make it on foot or not at all. Willow Creek's outskirts shimmered into view, clapboard houses, a diner with a flickering neon sign, and the community center where a banner flapped. "Harvest supper, Saturday night. Bring your best pie." It was a town where folks left doors unlocked and knew every neighbor's story, the kind of place Elliot had fled as a kid. Growing up in a similar speck of a town had taught him hard work and honesty, but also the sting of being underestimated. He'd vowed never to let that happen again. Yet here he was, looking like he'd crawled out of a barn, chasing a deal that could reshape the region's future. The office, a squat brick building with Grayson Enterprises etched on a sign, loomed ahead. Elliot's stomach knotted. Victor Grayson, the CEO, was a shark in pinstripes, his company snapping up land faster than a prairie fire. This deal was with Grayson's team, a chance to secure a vast tract for sustainable development. Affordable housing, small farms, a community hub. It was a project Elliot believed in, one that could honor the values of places like Willow Creek. But first, he had to get inside. He shoved through the glass doors, the air conditioning chilling his sweat-soaked skin. The lobby was sterile, chrome fixtures, white walls, a receptionist typing with manicured nails. Heads turned as he crossed the polished floor. Executives in crisp suits whispered, their eyes raking over his dusty jeans. "Who let the ranch hand in?" someone muttered. Laughter followed. Elliot gripped his satchel tighter. He wasn't filthy, just rustic. The flannel was clean enough, the jeans free of mud. He'd faced worse judgment and always come out on top. "Excuse me," he said, voice steady, addressing the receptionist. "I'm here for the Harper Grayson meeting." Elliot Harper, the receptionist, a young woman with a tight bun, glanced up, her lips twitching. "Harper? You're joking, right? This is a private meeting, sir. No laborers allowed." Elliot's jaw clenched. Pride flared, the old reflex to prove himself. "Check your schedule. I'm expected." She tapped her keyboard, smirking. "No Elliot Harper here. Maybe you meant the feed store down the road." The room erupted in chuckles. A man in a navy suit, mid-50s, with a Rolex glinting, leaned forward. "Come on, buddy, don't make a scene. You're out of your league." Elliot's fingers twitched. He could have yanked the contract from his satchel, waved it in their faces, but that wasn't his style. Not yet. He scanned the room, noting the faces, arrogant, dismissive, all except one. A woman, early 30s, stood near the back, her plain skirt and blouse marking her as an assistant, not an executive. Her brown eyes met his, steady, no trace of mockery. She clutched a notepad, her knuckles pale, as if bracing for something. Elliot filed her away in his mind. She was different. "Look," he said, turning back to the receptionist, keeping his tone even. "I'm not here to cause trouble. My appearance doesn't change the fact that I'm Elliot Harper, and I'm here to close a deal." "Check again." The Rolex man snorted. "Buddy, you're embarrassing yourself. Why don't you walk away before we call security?" "Walk away." Elliot's voice sharpened, humor edging in. "I've walked 5 miles in these boots to get here. I'm not leaving until I'm heard." More laughter, louder now. The receptionist picked up her phone, murmuring about security. Elliot's pride burned hotter. He'd been in their shoes once, quick to judge, slow to listen. It was a mistake he'd sworn not to repeat, yet here he was, letting his ego push him towards standoff. He should have called ahead, arranged a car, anything to avoid this mess. But no, he wanted to ride in like some cowboy, and now he was paying for it. The woman with the notepad stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. Maybe there's a mix-up. Can I check the system for you, Mr. Harper? The room quieted. The receptionist shot her a glare. Sarah, stay out of this. Sarah. Elliot caught her name, his gaze locking on her. She didn't flinch, just kept typing on a nearby terminal. Her hands trembled slightly, but her expression was resolute. She believed him, or at least she was giving him a chance. Found it, Sarah said, glancing up. Elliot Harper, 3 p.m., conference room B. It's in the secondary log. The receptionist's smirk faded. Rolex man frowned, muttering, some intern's error, probably. But the mood shifted, uncertainty rippling through the suits. Elliot felt a flicker of triumph, but it was short-lived. The double doors to the conference room swung open, and a man strode out. Victor Grayson himself, all sharp cheekbones and colder eyes. What's the holdup? He snapped, then stopped, taking in Elliot's appearance. His lip curled. Who's this? Elliot Harper, Elliot said, stepping forward, extending a hand. Here, for our meeting. Grayson didn't shake his hand. You? Harper? Don't waste my time. This is a serious deal, not a costume party. The laughter returned, sharper now like knives. Elliot's face burned. He could have walked away, rescheduled, but pride rooted him to the spot. My clothes don't change the contract in my bag, he said, voice low, or to the $10 million it's worth. Grayson's eyes narrowed, but he waved a hand. Get him out. I don't deal with jokers. 2 security guards appeared, their hands hovering near their belts. Elliot's heart sank. He'd miscalculated, let his pride blind him to how far appearances could sink him here. He glanced at Sarah, who stood frozen, her eyes wide with something like regret. She tried to help, and he'd let her down by pushing too hard. Wait, Elliot said, raising a hand. The guards paused. He turned to Grayson, his voice steady but laced with steel. You're making a mistake. Kick me out, and you're throwing away $10 million. Your choice. The room went silent. Grayson's smirk faltered, just for a second, but the guards advanced. Sarah stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. Mr. Grayson, maybe... Enough. Grayson barked. Out. Now. The guards grabbed Elliot's arms, pulling him toward the door. The suits jeered, their laughter echoing as he was shoved outside. The glass doors slammed shut, leaving him in the fading sunlight, his satchel still clutched tight. He stood there, chest heaving, pride bruised but intact. They'd regret this. And Sarah, who was she? Why had she helped him? He turned, catching a glimpse of her through the window, her face pale as she watched him go. Then she vanished behind the crowd. Elliot's mind raced. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Elliot Harper stood outside the Grayson Enterprises office, the Wyoming dusk swallowing the last of the day's warmth as the glass doors reflected his disheveled figure. The sting of being thrown out still burned, his pride a raw wound after Victor Grayson's dismissal and the suit's jeering laughter. But his mind snagged on Sarah, her quiet courage, those steady brown eyes. Why had she risked her boss's wrath to help a stranger? The $10 million deal was slipping away, but something about her made him pause. He adjusted his satchel, the contract inside a reminder of what he'd lost and what he could still fight for. Not done yet, he muttered, his humor surfacing like a lifeline. He'd find a way back in, but first he needed answers. The town of Willow Creek buzzed softly around him, porch lights flickering on as folks prepared for the evening. Elliot's boots crunched on the gravel as he headed toward the diner he'd passed earlier, its neon sign now glowing steadily. Maggie's Place, open late. His stomach growled, but more than food, he needed a plan. Grayson's team had underestimated him, and he'd let his pride make it easy for them. That was his mistake. Not the fall from Daisy, not the dusty clothes, but assuming his name alone would open doors. He'd been too stubborn to call ahead, too cocky to dress the part. Now, he had to outsmart them. Inside the diner, the air smelled of coffee and fried onions. A handful of locals sat at the counter, swapping stories about the upcoming harvest supper. A waitress, her apron embroidered with Maggie, waved him to a booth. "Rough day, huh?" she asked, eyeing his torn flannel. "You could say that," Elliot replied, flashing a grin. "Coffee black and whatever's quick." As Maggie poured, Elliot's gaze drifted to the window. Across the street, a figure emerged from the office. Sarah, her coat pulled tight, clutching that same notepad. She glanced around, then hurried toward a beat-up pickup truck. Instinct kicked in. Elliot tossed a few bills on the table, grabbed his satchel, and slipped out, his coffee untouched. "Sarah," he called, jogging to catch up. She froze, her hand on the truck's door, eyes wide. "Mr. Harper? What are you?" "Elliot," he corrected, catching his breath. "I owe you a thank you. You didn't have to stick your neck out back there." Her cheeks flushed, but she shrugged. "It wasn't right, how they treated you. I just checked the system." "Still," he said, studying her. Up close, she looked tired, her hair slipping from its bun, her hands calloused in a way that spoke of work beyond an office. "Why'd you do it?" She hesitated, then sighed. "I know what it's like to be judged on looks. Doesn't mean you're not worth hearing." Elliot nodded, sensing a story behind her words. "Let me buy you a coffee. Least I can do." Sarah glanced at her truck, then back at him. "I shouldn't. I've got things to take care of." 5 minutes, he pressed, his charm kicking in. "Unless you're scared of diner coffee." She laughed, a small sound, and relented. "Fine." 5 minutes. Back in the diner, they slid into a booth. Maggie raised an eyebrow, but brought 2 coffees without comment. Sarah wrapped her hands around her mug, her notepad on the table, its edges worn. Elliot leaned forward. "So, what's your deal? You're not like the rest of Grayson's crew." "I'm just an assistant," she said too quickly. "Bookkeeping, scheduling. Nothing special." "Doesn't add up," Elliot said, his tone light but probing. "You risked ticking off Grayson for me. That's not nothing special." Sarah's eyes flickered, guarded. "I don't like bullies. Grayson, he's tough, but it's just business." Elliot caught the lie in her voice, the way her fingers tightened on the mug. He didn't push, not yet. Instead, he leaned back, sipping his coffee. "Fair enough, but I'm not done with Grayson. That deal's too big to let slide." Her brow furrowed. "You're going back?" "After that." "Got no choice," he said, his humor fading. "It's not just about the money. It's about what the land could be. Homes, farms, something real for places like this." Sarah's expression softened, but before she could reply, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her face paling. "I have to go," she said, standing abruptly. "Everything okay?" Elliot asked, rising too. "It's family stuff," she said, avoiding his eyes. "Thanks for the coffee." She was out the door before he could stop her, her truck rattling to life and peeling away. Elliot stood by the diner window, his mind racing. Family stuff. The way she'd said it, the fear in her eyes. It wasn't just a late bill or a sick relative. Something was wrong, and it tied to Grayson. He was sure of it. The next morning, Elliot woke in a motel room on the edge of town, his satchel on the nightstand. He'd spent the night piecing things together. Grayson's reputation, Sarah's fear, the deal's stakes. His pride had blinded him yesterday, made him deny how much he'd leaned on his wealth to smooth his path. He wasn't ready to admit it fully, but he knew he'd misstepped. Today, he'd be smarter. He drove his rental car, a practical sedan, not the flashy ride he could have called, to an old warehouse on Willow Creek's outskirts, a site Grayson's company used for storage. He'd overheard Rolex man mention it in the lobby, a slip about moving files before the deal. If Grayson was dodging him, there might be answers here. The warehouse was a hulking relic, its windows boarded, surrounded by weeds. Elliot parked a quarter-mile away, approaching on foot. Inside, the air was musty, crates stacked high. He moved quietly, his flashlight beam catching dust motes. Voices echoed from deeper, in low, urgent. Elliot crouched behind a crate, peering through a gap. 2 men stood near a table piled with documents. One was Rolex man from yesterday, the other a wiry guy with a scar on his cheek, wore a Grayson Enterprises badge. "They're foreclosing on the Miller Ranch next week," Scar said, flipping through papers. "Grayson wants it fast. No loose ends." Rolex man nodded. "Good. That assistant's been asking questions. Sarah something. We need to keep her quiet." Elliot's blood ran cold. Sarah, the Miller Ranch, her family? He edged closer, his boots scraping softly. The men froze, heads snapping toward the sound. "Who's there?" Scar barked, pulling a flashlight. Elliot's heart pounded. He'd been careless, too focused on eavesdropping. Pride again, making him think he could slip in unnoticed. He backed away, but his satchel caught on a crate, toppling a stack of boxes with a crash. The men shouted, their footsteps closing in. "Run!" Elliot hissed to himself, sprinting for the exit. He burst into the daylight, diving behind a rusted tractor as the men emerged, scanning the lot. His chest heaved, sweat stinging his eyes. He'd escaped, but barely. And now he knew. Sarah was in trouble, tied to a ranch Grayson wanted. But why? And how deep did this go? He made it back to his car, his mind a storm. Sarah's fear, the warehouse papers, Grayson's ruthlessness, it was all connected. He needed to find her, but first, he had to confront Grayson again. Not in the office, not on their terms. He'd track him to the harvest supper tomorrow night, where the whole town would be. Grayson wouldn't dare make a scene there. As he drove back to town, Elliot's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the old barn on Route 6. Midnight. Come alone. S. Sarah." His grip tightened on the wheel. This was his chance, but it felt like a trap. He'd go, but not unprepared. His pride had cost him enough. This time, he'd be ready. The barn loomed in his mind, a dark silhouette against the stakes climbing higher than he'd imagined. Sarah wasn't just an assistant. She was in the fight of her life. And he was in it with her now, whether he liked it or not. The Wyoming night was thick with stars as Elliot Harper pulled his rental sedan off Route 6, the old barn's silhouette looming against the horizon. Sarah's text, "Midnight, come alone," had set his nerves on edge. The near disaster at the warehouse earlier that day still clung to him, the crash of crates and the men's shouts echoing in his mind. He'd been reckless, driven by pride, thinking he could uncover Grayson's schemes single-handedly. Now, with Sarah's cryptic message, he sensed the stakes were higher than a lost deal. Her fear in the diner, the warehouse talk of foreclosing on the Miller Ranch, it all pointed to her fighting for something bigger than herself. Elliot's satchel, still holding the $10 million contract, felt heavier now, a symbol of his own missteps. "No more cowboy stunts," he muttered, his humor a thin shield. He'd face Sarah, but he'd be cautious. The barn's weathered planks creaked in the wind as he approached, his flashlight off to avoid detection. The air smelled of hay and earth, grounding him in Willow Creek's familiar rhythms. He'd grown up in a town like this, where barns hosted dances and secrets alike. Tonight it felt like both. He slipped inside, the darkness swallowing him until a soft glow flickered from the far corner. Sarah stood there, her notepad clutched tight, a lantern casting shadows across her tense face. "Elliot," she whispered, her voice taut. "You came. Couldn't leave you hanging," he said, stepping closer, his tone light, but eyes scanning the shadows. "What's this about, Sarah? And don't say family stuff. I heard them at the warehouse, Grayson's after the Miller Ranch. That's you, isn't it?" Her shoulders sagged, the weight of truth pressing down. "It's my family's place," she admitted. "Been ours for 3 generations. Grayson's been buying up land, forcing folks out. He's got the bank on his side, says we're behind on payments. We're not, but the paperwork, it's all twisted. If we lose the ranch, my parents, they'll have nothing." Elliot's chest tightened. He'd been so caught up in his deal, his pride, he'd missed the human cost of Grayson's greed. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I didn't know you," she said, eyes flashing. "You're some guy who walked in looking like a drifter, claiming millions. I couldn't risk it. But after the warehouse, I heard you were there. You're in this now, whether you meant to be or not." He nodded, the sting of his mistake sharper now. He denied how his wealth had blinded him, how he'd underestimated Grayson's reach. "I'm in," he said, "but we need a plan." Grayson's at the harvest supper tomorrow. The whole town will be there. We can expose him, but we need proof. Sarah hesitated, then opened her notepad, revealing pages of numbers and dates. I've been tracking Grayson's deals. Fake loans, forged signatures. It's enough to bury him, but he's got people everywhere. Bankers, lawyers. If we go public, he'll come for me. And you. Elliot's jaw set. Let him try. We'll do this together. Her eyes met his, a spark of trust igniting. But it wasn't just trust. There was something more, a pull he hadn't expected. He pushed it aside. This wasn't the time for feelings, not with Grayson circling. The harvest supper was in full swing the next evening at the Willow Creek Community Center, tables laden with pies and casseroles, laughter mingling with a local band's fiddle tune. The town's heartbeat here, families, elders, kids running wild. Elliot, cleaned up in a borrowed jacket, stood near the entrance, Sarah at his side. Her notepad was hidden in her bag, their plans simple but risky. Confront Grayson with the evidence, rally the town's support, and force him to back off the ranch. But Elliot knew plans could fail. His pride had taught him that. Grayson arrived, all charm, shaking hands like a politician. Elliot's stomach churned. The man's smile hit a predator's teeth. Sarah's hand brushed his, a fleeting reassurance. Ready, she whispered. As I'll ever be, he replied, his grin masking nerves. They waited until Grayson took the stage, praising the town's bright future with his company's help. Elliot stepped forward, his voice cutting through the applause. Bright for who, Grayson? Not the Millers, whose ranch you're stealing. The crowd hushed. Grayson's eyes narrowed. Harper, you again. Making trouble. Not trouble, Elliot said, holding up Sarah's notepad. Proof. Forged loans, fake foreclosures. You're cheating this town, and we've got the numbers to show it. Sarah stepped up, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. My family's not the only one. There's others, pushed off their land. We trusted you, and you lied. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. An older man, white-haired, leaning on a cane, called out, That true, Sarah? It was her father, pride in his eyes. The town's elders nodded, their faces hardening. This was their community, their values, family, honesty under attack. Grayson laughed, but it was strained. This is nonsense. They're desperate spinning stories. Then let's see the bank records, Elliot shot back. Public audit right now. Unless you're scared. The crowd roared approval. Grayson's mask slipped, his face paling. But then, Rolex man from the warehouse pushed through, whispering to Grayson. Two men in suits, Grayson's muscle, flanked the stage. Elliot's heart sank. He'd underestimated Grayson again, thinking public pressure would be enough. Sarah grabbed his arm. We need to move. They slipped through the crowd, Grayson's men trailing. Outside, the night air hit like a slap. Elliot led Sarah to his car, but headlights flared. A black SUV blocked the lot. Scar, the warehouse thug, stepped out, a smirk twisting his face. Going somewhere, Elliot's pride screamed to fight, but he saw Sarah's fear and stopped. He'd been wrong to think this would be clean. Get behind me, he told her, raising his hands. What's Grayson paying you, Scar? Whatever it is, it's not worth this. Scar sneered. You don't get it, Harper. Grayson owns this town. Not tonight, Sarah said, stepping forward, her voice fierce. The town's with us. You heard them. Scar hesitated, but Grayson's men closed in. Elliot's mind raced. He'd failed Sarah once, letting pride cloud his judgment. Not again. Sarah, run, he whispered, then lunged at Scar, tackling him to the ground. Pain flared as Scar's fist connected with his jaw, but Elliot held on, giving Sarah time to sprint toward the community center. Shouts erupted as townsfolk poured out, led by Sarah's father. Let him go, the old man bellowed. The crowd surged, outnumbering Grayson's men. Scar scrambled back, the suits retreating to the SUV. Elliot staggered to his feet, blood trickling from his lip, but alive. Sarah ran to him, her eyes wide. You okay? Been better, he said, grinning through the pain. But we've got them now. The sheriff, roused by the commotion, arrived, taking Grayson's men into custody. Sarah handed over her notepad, the evidence enough to trigger an investigation. Grayson's charm couldn't save him now. The town's trust was broken. But Elliot knew it wasn't over. Grayson had resources, connections. This was a battle won, not the war. Later, under the community center's porch lights, Sarah and Elliot sat on a bench, the crowd dispersing. Her parents hugged her, their relief palpable. Elliot watched, his heart full but heavy. He'd helped save the ranch, but at a cost: bruises, a busted deal, and the truth about himself. I was wrong, he admitted, voice low. Thought I could waltz in, throw my weight around. Nearly got us both hurt. Sarah touched his hand, her fingers warm. You stayed. That's what matters. He met her gaze, the spar from the barn flaring again. He wanted to kiss her, but obstacles loomed. Her family's recovery, his own tangled business. This thing between us, he said, hesitant. It's real, but it's not simple. Nothing worth having is, she replied, a smile breaking through. We'll figure it out. They stood, her hand in his, the town's lights glowing like a promise. The ranch was safe, but challenges remained. Legal fights, financial strain. Yet with Sarah, the town behind them, and his pride finally humbled, Elliot felt hope. Forgiveness, second chances, they were possible. He'd rebuild, not just for himself, but for her, for Willow Creek. As the band played on, Elliot squeezed Sarah's hand. Dance with me? She laughed, pulling him toward the music. Only if you keep up. They joined the crowd, the town's heart beating strong, a testament to love, courage, and community. The future wasn't perfect, but it was theirs to shape. Subscribe to the channel to see more soul-stirring stories.